Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Survivor Calgary Season 3, Episode 10 recap. I am joined, as always, by Kendal. Kendal, how are you?
I'm good. It's nice to see you. How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. There's a little bit of a watch party going on over here, so you may hear some background noise in the back. I apologize for that. What did you think of this episode?
It was good. It was fun. I am not jealous at all to be missing the watch party. So it feels totally good and exactly the same thing to be here alone watching it. But no, it was a good episode. It was a lot of fun. Really, yeah, I at the start was not expecting Taylor to go. That was a pretty shocking turn of events, I think.
It really
Yeah,
did
from the
seem
start
like
to the end. Yeah.
like Kristen, Taylor, and Craig had clicked up at this point. They were ready to really stick with each other and hopefully run the game together. But we see that dissolve really quickly once the tribes merge back together.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, on Taylor's end as well as on Craig and Kristen's end, right?
Taylor was fully willing to throw them under the bus too. This was
Yeah.
definitely not a one-way thing where they're like, yeah, Taylor's gone. And I think they kind of didn't have a choice. It really did seem like Bomi kind of forced his hand here. And really was like, yeah, brains need to go. It needs to be Taylor or Kristen. And Kristen just had slightly better connections and maybe was able to worm her way in through that.
Right, for sure. Yeah. Which also is like, and I mean, we can get into this, but I mean, I think it's like such an interesting dynamic when there are 4 and 4, and like for Bomi and Craig and Kristen and Taylor to not maybe like capitalize on the fact that they
really does feel like it might be 4, 3, and 1.
Yeah, for sure. But like, I guess, is that going to be the best move for Bomi's game in the long run? Right?
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see for sure. I was, especially after last week, I think at this point in the game, I was expecting Bomi to be a bit more fluid with his vote. But also the people on the other side want to target Sydney, who we saw he's very close with. We saw that he had that pact with her right at the merge episode where they say final 2, let's keep this going.
Yeah.
So we know that there's that existing relationship. Maybe if they target Chelsea or Eric here, that's something he's more willing to go with.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I guess, he knows what he's doing, and he's aligning himself with a pretty strong player here who's got some great connections. So.
Some very strong players for sure.
Yeah,
we see also this episode, the return of the Fireball Idol. What are your kind of thoughts on this coming back and it already being downed, Craig being in possession of this kind of with Kristen?
Yeah, I mean, I am happy that it's in their hands. It really feels like they're the underdogs, and like the underdogs to bronze as like the classic, whatever the opposite of an underdog is. The overcat. Yeah, for sure. So like, I'm very happy that it's in their hands. Super impressed that they finished it so fast, because we saw in last season, it took several people a long time to get through it, like way more people than they had this time around. So yeah, super impressed by that.
Yeah, and more importantly, compared to last season, we see the person who finds the Fireball Idol hang on to it and not just give it to someone in the majority alliance.
Yes, absolutely. Which, shockingly controversial move, apparently, to hang on to the idols.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, super wild.
Well, I guess we did see an idol here. Do you think Craig should have maybe considered playing this idol for Taylor and maybe swing the votes the other way?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say that he shouldn't have, given that we saw how like little faith Taylor had to their alliance immediately, right? Like, it's easier, I think, now to say, yeah. And I mean, maybe Craig had a sense of that, right? Like, maybe he already knew, given that he didn't play it, given that even for Kristen, even that Kristen didn't bring it up like as an option in that like chat right before tribal, right? But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It feels like maybe the time, the window where that
important thing to consider here is that Craig didn't bring his idol to tribal council. Yeah. Apparently, a lesson that he did not learn from last week with Kayla, where she forgot hers.
Seriously, it's surprising that this is a recurring theme. But yeah, like
specifically with those belligerent players. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. That's a good connection there for sure. But yeah, no, I mean, like, it's hard to say because you can see it as 4-4 for sure. And I mean, I think that the Braun 4 is playing as a strong 4 right now.
We do really see some cracks here.
Yeah.
We see Shervin once again target Sydney. It really did seem again like he wanted to go for Sydney here, but Bomi just wasn't willing to budge.
Right. Isn't that interesting how much like a single player can
really influence the game just by like sticking to what they want?
Yeah.
And then Bomi even tells Sydney straight up, yeah, Shervin was targeting you. You should watch out for that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, even when Bomi got brought up, even just kind of like Sydney was really going hard also to keep him safe. Right.
Yeah.
So there's some like,
yeah, she was adamant for this entire kind of period. We cannot vote Bomi out. He's a number for us. We need to stick with him.
Yeah, for sure. So there's clearly some like very strong influence going on there. Yeah,
definitely. They're playing the game together very tight. Some other interesting Sid strategy that I wanted to bring up was before Tribal Council, she decides, you know what? That limited amount of time we have talking, I'm done with it. I'm just going to go hide in the woods and wait for everyone else to show up so I don't have to talk to anyone anymore. What are your kind of thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it could, I guess it's an interesting strategy for her as someone who like doesn't need to be like, I don't think that anybody perceives her as a wild card or like she's going to be out of the loop, like and she's not at risk of not being kept in the loop of where the vote's going to go, right? Like she's positioned so strong socially that I mean,
maybe to some degree, being a threat, it might be useful to just disappear so no one the goldfish minds of these players after a very stressful 2 days just forgets that you're in the game if you're not showing up on
totally
there.
Yeah, absolutely, which is a very different strategy also than being in the very first challenge of an episode of a season, for example, and also disappearing and then people forgetting that you're a player does not work as well if you're at the start of the game than the position that Sydney is in. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I guess this is very similar strategy to Kale.
Exactly.
Two very different intentions.
Yes, and two very different outcomes, clearly.
Now, we saw the Edge also seemingly play some sort of role in this vote where it almost seemed like the Edge was causing so much chaos that no one could figure out what the hell was going on.
Yeah, for sure. Which was super interesting. Like, what an interesting dynamic. And interesting because, then players also know they're being watched in a bit of a different way when they're having these private conversations, right?
Yeah, now all of a sudden they're talking and the Edge can actually see them have these conversations with some of their closest allies and with people who they're not the closest allies with and see kind of how they're balancing that act. And get a better idea of the players' social games for players that they haven't had a chance to interact with in the game.
Right, for sure. Was there anybody that you noticed, like from the Edge, who really used that, like as an opportunity for information?
I don't think so. I think most of the people on the Edge were using it as an opportunity to earn cups by icing people.
Right.
This was the primary goal of most of them. We saw him alone with Bomi. I think he was trying to get Tom, but ended up friendly firing on Bomi. But
which is great and feels like a little bit of payback.
Rivalry from early in the season continues in some small way.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say payback for that matchup challenge. Really, matching challenge. Yeah.
What did you think of this challenge, by the way?
It was fun. I mean, again, I didn't know that I was gonna be obsessed with slow-mo replays, but I've become obsessed.
Slow-mo replays are
so
key.
Fun.
Well, some interesting background for that is Saphir for this challenge turned his camera on slow-mo mode.
Oh, no.
And then forgot to turn it off slow-mo mode for the rest of the day. All of the footage we have of like Saphir filming Tom explaining the challenge, Tom is like,
yeah.
And there's no audio, there's nothing. It's brutal. Yeah, we managed to work with it and figure it out, but it's a little bit of a production hiccup there for sure. Some fun stuff. Fun behind the scenes stuff.
Well, it ended up working. It was a good challenge to have some slow-mo footage for. So
absolutely, yeah. So I think it's time. Let's bring in Craig and Taylor. Craig is going to be joining me in person here. Craig, you can come head in. I think he's watching the TV there. Okay, cool. Taylor, how are you here after watching that episode back and watching the season back so far?
It's a lot of fun. Obviously, I'd like to change a lot, but no, it's great. I love it.
Nice. Any regrets from that last vote? Or I guess in the game.
I wish I would have tried to convince Craig to use his idol on me a little more. I definitely like during the moment I was like, okay, I understand you don't want to use your idol. Like you just found it. This times are getting pretty
But
crazy
this
here,
is like
so
a pivotal vote where you can maybe swing the numbers towards the sides of the others as
yeah. Yeah, and like I don't know,
great.
I was like laying myself on a silver platter to brawn. Like I'll do anything with you guys. Like so, I was hoping to not make it through with them, but our like Kristen, Craig, and I, and then Bomi, hopefully, if that could have turned out. Um, but I would have went in bronze too if I had to. But they were definitely my backup plan.
Yeah, we saw you getting closer to Chelsea. Was that ever kind of an avenue that you were considering and trying to like work with to maybe potentially get
Yeah,
some like Sydney out?
yeah, I was trying. I like early when we first got there, the early game. I found out she was from Edmonton, so I was like, oh, I need to try and like get close with her. We did like hang out a lot too. We were on the same camp, so I don't know, just a lot of small talk. Felt pretty good. Wasn't as good as I thought though, clearly.
Yeah, I just sometimes that's the case too, where you connect with a player outside of the game, but just inside the game, there's just like way too many circumstances to actually like.
Oh, exactly. I thought it would matter so much. I was like, Cameron, like game on. Like as soon as we pull up, like I'm Mr. Nice Guy to
Turn it
everyone.
on the
Like
charm,
which
yeah.
isn't that different, but like, yeah, I thought it would help a bit more than it did, but.
Craig, did you ever consider playing your idol for Taylor?
Um, I didn't think that it was at the point that Taylor. I didn't think Taylor was going to be going. So that's why I didn't bring it with me. I thought the three of us were at a safe place. But
Yeah.
I would have, if I had heard enough rumblings that Taylor was the one going, I don't know if I would have.
But you did vote for Taylor.
Yeah, I know. But
Kristen only told me on the way to tribal though. Like I didn't even find out till
So this was kind of like one of
before.
those last minute things where it was figured out like, oh, Taylor's the person who it's landed on.
Yeah, like I guess that as well. Yeah, like I didn't really know I had to convince Craig to use his idol on me as much as I did.
It's really fast moving game. I totally understand.
Oh my god, it's so fun.
Yeah.
How committed were you two to that 3 that we saw kind of after that challenge kind of formed? I guess Taylor, you go ahead first.
I was super committed to it. Kristen and I were close all game. Like you can see us get closer near the end there. But like I would tell her everything. It seemed like she would tell me most things or everything as well. So I don't know. I felt great with her. And then I was so willing to work with Craig till the end too. Like if that worked out, that would have been my 3 for sure.
Makes sense. So if let's say in the theoretical world, Craig plays his idol for you, you're safe. That 3 can maybe run the game. That's something that you would have wanted to have happen.
I was hoping for it. I think I remember talking to Shervin a bit, trying to get him to come to our side because I lent him my my sleeping mat because he was sleeping on the cold ground the first night. Well, he almost was. So I was like, okay, like we're buds. Let's do this. But no.
I like it. We saw you really emphasize in your gameplay this idea of laying low and staying under the radar. Do you think that played to your favor in the game? Do you think that maybe there was like a breaking point where you had to try and maybe make a little bit more of a splash? Or
I don't know. It's kind of tough.
you were the second
like
longest lasting member of the Brains. If we're not counting Bowman,
that's true. That's true. No, yeah. It seemed to work out. I was hoping that people would start to pull me in eventually, because like cracks form, alliances crumble, people lie. So I was hoping I'd be able to just kind of intercept and like be a replacement for somebody, hopefully, and I don't know, coast as long as possible, and then play when necessary, and not overdo anything.
Makes sense. Kendal, do you have any questions for Craig or Taylor?
Yeah, I'm curious from both of you if there's any part of you that thought that Bomi's idol was real, like the decoy that he had, and if that influenced your gameplay at all.
I didn't believe it, but there was this little part that was like, no, because if I don't believe it and we do it, then it's gonna just screw us all over. he was nobody. It was clear in this episode, especially, that none of us truly knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, Bomi is a fucking wild card. Is the story of post-merge, honestly, to some degree.
It's so hard to trust him because like he's just so in character, like just constantly lying about something. Well, that's how he makes you feel anyway.
I'm pretty sure that's the like quote from you from the very first episode, Taylor. You can't trust a man in a suit.
Yeah.
I was terrified. Oh my god.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was the question again?
If you thought his idol was real, his decoy idol
yeah,
was real at any point.
This is why you were voted out.
I don't even know. This is another thing that I thought I'd be better at, but I was so unobservant out there. I don't even know if I realized he had that sticking out. And I didn't find the idols. Like, I don't know. Everything was just like right in front of me, but I was like,
that's super fair. Well, it's a lot. I think you really have to be looking for them in order to
Yeah.
find them, right? Like the woods are big. There's a lot of stuff.
It was so overwhelming. Oh my gosh.
Well, especially because you knew practically no one coming out. Like your closest connection with anyone on the cast, I'm pretty sure was Chelsea because she was also from Edmonton. I guess you knew Greg, but early.
Like I knew Greg, but like I didn't know how that would have went. I told him I don't know. We saw Greg
target his former roommate immediately. So
exactly, yeah. Like no, not happening. And yeah, like I pretended not to know him and vice versa. It's like there's no point in this. And then I knew that Kristen was friends with Cam, who I'm friends with from last season. So that's how I got a little bit of a connection with her. And she's also from Edmonton, so like a little bit of that. So yeah, we just slowly grew closer together. But yeah, other than that, I had nobody. It was so anxiety filling, just like meeting all these people all at once. And I'm like also trying to play this game and like read these people. Oh, it was so fun, but it was whew.
Yeah. Craig, on the other side of having no one, you I think have an alliance with literally every single person in the game at this point, except for maybe Sydney and Chelsea.
Sydney's the one person I never spoke to.
But we did see your alliance, your closest or at least longest lasting alliance with Kayla get voted out here. How did that kind of affect your game in terms of like recalibration with Eric and Shervin, that sort of plan moving forward?
So this, and what was nice, and that's where I was going in with Taylor and Kristen, of maybe having to trust them a lot more, because I thought we had this Final Four with Eric, Shervin, Kayla, and I. And then when Kayla got voted out, and they have their reasons, and it makes sense. Like, honestly, if I was in their position, I probably would have done it too. It was best for their gameplay, but it made me question things. And at this point, I was very much, yes, I have a lot of alliances, a lot of Final Two deals, but I was going in this tribal council. I was going in where I was really focusing on this Final Three with Taylor and Kristen, and this Final Three with Shervin and Eric. And I was really trusting Shervin. Eric was this is the point where I'm starting to kind of question Eric, and he's such a smart, great player. He won the immunity, and I was a little hesitant about it, but it completely changed my game plan, because now I'm the last belligerent and my truly closest ally is gone.
Yeah, and we kind of see Eric with a similar problem to you, where he just has way too many allies to make them all happy at all times, which is kind of an interesting position to be in, especially when you have as much power in the game as Eric seemingly does at this point. Kendal, any more questions for Taylor or Craig?
Taylor, if you had any advice for future Survivor Calgary players, anything that you would recommend, just suggest for people who are going to come play the game?
Follow your gut. When you think something's up, it's up. There's something there. You just have to find it. So trust yourself a lot. And
it's the only person you can trust out there.
Exactly. And be observant as you can. Just look as hard everywhere all the time.
I'll write this down because I'm playing next season. So
look hard everywhere all the time, Cole.
No matter what you're doing. Yeah.
Looking hard.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to like play. Like that's what I did. I was like a little shaky on trying to make moves, or like say certain information to certain people. Excuse me. So yeah, just do it. Just say it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome. Anything either one of you guys would like to say before we close out with the player of the week?
Taylor, I'm sorry. I do love you. I was really bummed that, I had to look out for myself and my 37 other alliances I had going on.
No, I definitely get it. But yeah, I get it so much. I would have probably done the same, unfortunately. But there's always a next time. You never know.
Awesome. Thank you both so much.
Wait, Cole, really quickly. I'm just seeing that there's a question for Taylor in the
Oh,
comments.
hold on. I just seen that now too. Q for Taylor. Do you regret keeping Sydney in the game over me? From Mr. Tyler Malone.
Yes. That is one. I think that is probably my biggest mistake. Is I could have done some damage.
You and the rest of the brains, I think.
If I switched, if I went to Malone's side during that tribal, and because it seemed like he was genuinely willing to try it out. So if I just did it, who knows what would have happened? Oh, I think about that every week.
Yeah. That swap tribe was pretty crazy. Certainly. I think you all four of you who lasted through that tribe as well probably came into the merge with a little bit of a disadvantage, not just because of numbers, but because you had just been worn down by the game to a degree that your tribe just had.
Yeah, just emotionally drained after that. Oh.
Yeah, for sure.
Still super fun though.
Awesome. Great to hear. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
I'll let you join and watch the rest on the TV here, Craig. Thanks again, Taylor, for
you.
Kendal, it's time. Player of the week.
I'm not ready. I'm never ready.
We have 7 players remaining.
Yes.
I don't think we can give it to any. I don't think we can give it to Craig or Kristen. Their presumable final 3 alliance just fell apart, or at least one of them for Craig.
Yeah.
I don't think we can give it to Shervin because he clearly wanted to target Sydney here. She doesn't go. It's instead Taylor.
Yeah.
So that kind of leaves us with Eric, Chelsea, and Bomi and Sydney. Those 4. Kind of similar sort of episode for all 4 where they want a brain to go, a brain goes. One important note, I think, maybe to bring up is that Eric clearly wanted to keep Kristen, and Kristen stays.
Yeah.
When Kristen seemingly was the vote that Bomi really wanted at that point.
Yeah. And I mean, he won the challenge also.
Certainly, yep. Able to
in
keep
his
himself safe
community.
and use that.
Yeah, for sure. I think that
but Bomi, also our player of the week last week, fully was the one who made this vote happen. If Bomi doesn't stick with Brain needs to go, it might be Sydney here.
Yeah, and I think this is what I was just gonna say is I think this is a time where we can really see. I don't know. It's hard to tell just from the episode how much he was aware of the influence that he had on this vote, but where him being sticking his heels in about it and having the relationship that he already has with Sydney, and the influence that she has over the vote too, where that just completely shapes who goes home, right?
Yeah.
And I do think that's
well,
super impressive.
I guess another person to bring up here is Sydney herself. It was her tight alliance with Bomi that made him stick his feet in the mud a little bit here and hold on to that brawn group that he had turned on the previous episode to some extent.
Yeah, for sure. You know what though? I do think that Eric pulls forward for me here. I think that the challenge win at this stage is really key, and I think that he is more tuned into the dynamics than some of the other players and where kind of things are going than the other players are. But I also think
he didn't really have a connection with was Taylor, and Taylor's now gone. He's a pretty close connection to every player left in the game. Yeah,
he's sitting real pretty, and I think that it is very hard to imagine that even if he didn't win the challenge, if he didn't win the challenge this week, that he would be named, right? I don't think he would be on anybody's name, in anybody's.
But it gives him the opportunity to maybe play a little bit faster, a little bit looser.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I think for that reason, it's got to be Eric for this week with Bomi, and Sydney is like honorable mentions for sure.
I think I have to agree, especially with Chelsea's kind of closest ally on the bottom going out here. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for her.
Yeah.
The other three, I think, would all have been fantastic player of the weeks. I think I would have gone with Eric too. I think he's playing a fantastic game and starting to kind of reap the benefits of building up all of those connections that he has throughout the pre-merge and this early merge here.
Totally. Yeah, he's playing quite the game. It's really exciting for sure.
Any updates to your winner predictions? I think you picked Kristen and I picked Eric.
Yeah.
So I'm looking great right now. I'm feeling really great about the winner pick I had at the merge on day 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think Eric is looking like a lot stronger than Kristen is right now. I'm gonna hold out hope. Like I am absolutely holding out hope for Kristen, and I think that, I'm trying. What I'm telling myself is like she said she's playing from the bottom. So
she's kind of got an idol. She's kind of got an idol. She helped. She was clearly the one who helped Craig the most with it.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah,
I think just based on her level of drunkenness.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'm still holding out hope. I do not think that I would have seen Sydney as much of a threat in the game. Like, I don't think that she was on my radar at that stage, like when you had first asked me. I do think she's playing strongly. I think she's gonna have to pull out some challenge wins here because she's like absolutely.
She's a pretty strong player though. Like in terms of challenge performance, I think she absolutely has the creds to win it out here if that's what it comes to.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see. Yeah.
Cool. Kendal, anything you want to say before we close out the podcast here for this week?
Thanks for having me here. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. I just want to give a huge shout out to the Krill family for hosting us for this watch party. Thank you very much for all the food. It was very, very nice to play some backyard games. Really, really appreciate that. I also, we got some cheering going on in the other room. I also want to quickly shout out tomorrow. I know most of our viewership is in Alberta, which makes sense. We do have a provincial election happening. Big reminder to get out and vote. It's very important that you vote. We mentioned it last week, but bears repeating. Kendal, thanks again for joining us. Always great. I will not talk to you next week. Actually, I should mention this. Yeah. Keegan, my identical twin brother, will be taking my place on the podcast for the next 2 weeks as I will be in Europe. You will probably notice absolutely no difference at all.
I'll know, Cole.
You will. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Bye, everyone. Thanks.